It is 7 o'clock, and I would like to call our meeting to order. Um, we have we'll do a quick roll call. Matt Lowry,
Here.
Bill Spalding,
Here.
and both Jim Hogan, our co-chair, and Kevin York are not able to be here tonight, as is Aaron Kokinda. But it is really a delight to have our first planning board meeting with our new senior planner. So I want to welcome Samantha Elliott. Yeah, it's wonderful to have you. If you wanted to take just a couple minutes to introduce yourself, that'd be great. Yeah.
Sure. So I am Wakefield's new senior planner. I started March 1st and currently I'm working remote, but we'll be in town very soon within the next month or, next couple of months. And my background is in historic preservation and zoning, and dealing with large developments with multifaceted issues. And I'm very much looking forward to hitting the ground running as soon as I get in town. I'm currently working on the housing production plan and a handful of other things. Also working with Aaron on the MBTA communities. So I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person at some point.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, we're really delighted that you've joined Aaron and a really capable town staff, and we really look forward to working with you too. So it's wonderful to have you. Yeah, we'll have a lot more opportunities to connect and talk in more detail, and look forward to meeting you in person too. For everyone on the call tonight, I do also want to note that we published an amended agenda this morning based on the town council's referral of a citizens petition to for the April 29th town warrant and town meeting. The chair is permitted to amend the published agenda when an event like this occurs. So that the amendment is to add item 3 to our agenda to set a public hearing on the citizen petition that we received, and we'll come around to that. Matt, did you have a comment, or did I hear someone? Okay. Our second item of business is the approval of our February 27th minutes. Any discussion? All right. All right. All in favor? Oh, well, first of all, I need a motion. Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the February 27th, 2024 meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All right. Wonderful. All in favor? Matt?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 3-0. That's terrific. The third item on our agenda is the new item, as noted. This is a procedural agenda item so that we can set a public hearing for the citizens petition that was referred to us from town council last night. That was regarding an alternative multifamily overlay district regarding the MBTA Communities Act with some different terms and a different map. Aaron has confirmed that's the sponsor, Councilor Ed Dombrowski, that Tuesday, April 9th is a workable date for that public hearing. And that also coincides with that being the first public hearing within the meeting notice requirements that we could accommodate this public hearing. So any comments, discussion about setting a public hearing date?
None for me.
All right. And Matt? All right. None for me as well. So, okay. A motion to set the public hearing date on the citizens petition regarding the MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District that we received last night.
So moved.
Right. April 9th. Thank you.
Second,
All right. And all in favor? Matt?
yes.
All right, Bill?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So that's good. We will have that discussion. Bill, Matt, 0. All right, we have a couple minutes before we open our first public hearing tonight regarding the self-storage facility. There any quick items from that you might want to mention from items not anticipated while we're waiting to open? Yeah, Bill.
Yeah, just an update on the the bike and ped plan that was developed a few years back. Started with MAPC, and Aaron Kokinda and Bill Renault have been updating it, editing, meeting with Traffic Advisory Council, both chiefs, police and fire, as well as town council, and a few other groups in town. And happy to say that last night at the town council meeting that the bike ped plan, which is guidelines and best practices for future projects, meaning it doesn't say that these projects are happening, but it has guidelines in there. So when a project does come up, they can use the guidelines, but it still has to go through approval through town council and many other committees and boards. So that was approved last night, 5-7, I believe, at the town council meeting. And it was really good to see that happen for our town, for safe streets and everything else.
Yeah. And yeah, a lot of credit goes to the Safe Streets Working Group and everyone, town staff and the town councilors who have really been involved, and everyone else that's really participated in it.
Yeah, Julie Smith Galvin was the
Right.
town councilor that originally secured the grant for MAPC to start the process, taking what we learned from surveys and Envision Wakefield 2018, 2017 we did that, and that just kind of kept growing into some other grants. And now it's just it's amazing that it really went through. It had a lot of hands, but a lot of edits as well. So it turned out to be a really good plan. A lot of pedestrian safety, sidewalk access type things going on. I think it's just the start. So
Really, really great. Yeah, and a really nice addition to have those tools for the town.
Yep.
Another thing that came out of town meeting was approval of using some public some grant funds to support the creation of Inspire Cafe to help them refurbish and open up this is Friends of Inspire, a nonprofit group operating a cafe staffed by people with different abilities, and yeah, a really, really successful model, and creates really great working and learning opportunities.
Yeah, it was good to hear that at the town council meeting last night. And if you did stop by the white containers across from the AmeriCal last summer that were set up with slush and different local goodies, baked goods and stuff, that's what Inspired Cafe will be coming. And I believe, if I was paying attention, it would be where the bread shop was. And they have an
Right.
architect. They have a few other people involved working with them with the Boys and Girls Club to get that going for accessibility and everything into the space.
All right. Yeah, terrific. Yeah, so I'm excited. I like coffee and bread, so, and pastries.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, we're seconds away. All right. Yeah, so my cell phone says 7:10. So with that, I would like to open our public hearing for the self-storage facility zoning bylaw, and the just a couple of housekeeping items before we begin. We want to hear from everybody, and so we're going to allow 5 minutes per speaker. It's really important that everyone be muted so that you can hear the speaker, and then when it's your turn, unmute yourself, turn your camera on, say your name and your street or the business that you're affiliated with. And like Bill said, we'll both keep time. And it really is an important opportunity to hear from the sponsors and get to understand what's in the zoning bylaw proposal that's being presented. So I understand that Attorney Brian McGrail, you're going to be presenting along with a couple others. You can share your screen, and I'd like to invite you to begin.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail with offices at 607 North Avenue in Wakefield. I have a PowerPoint that I'd like to share. Let me. Are you able to see that, Mr. Chair? Are you able to see that?
Yeah, Theo's muted. Yes, you can see
Okay.
that, Brian.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. As you mentioned, this is I'll call it the self-storage facility zoning bylaw amendment that's being proposed for town meeting. And I wanted to start with really the motivation for this bylaw amendment. Self-storage facility is not currently defined in our zoning bylaw, and thus it falls under warehouse use. And this proposed zoning amendment will clean that up. This is a citizen's petition that is motivated by the fact that not only to clean that up, but also specifically the owner of 50 Quantipowitt Parkway and Capasoli Enterprises, the prospective purchaser of that property, believe that 50 Quantipowitt Parkway is an excellent location for a self-storage facility, and the overlay component to this bylaw will allow for that to occur. Capasoli Enterprises is in the business of self-storage. They own a number of facilities in Massachusetts and in Florida, very successful operators. With me tonight is Chris Capasoli. He is the principal. Also, I want to point out that John Ogren is here from Hayes Engineering because John's worked on this bylaw and is happy to answer any questions on the site. I'm also going to elaborate a little bit more on the motivation and why we believe this is an appropriate location as the presentation goes forward. I'd like to start with the text of the bylaw amendment to kind of explain how it fits into the bylaw. I believe it fits neatly within the bylaw, and it would be adaptable to future changes. It's something that has been recognized, the lack of this specific definition of a self-storage facility has been recognized by the bylaw review committee, and it's something that I've gone to all the hearings that they want addressed. So I'm going to start with the first thing that we're proposing to do as part of our amendment is to amend the definition sections to add self-storage facility. And we're saying a self-storage facility is a facility where portions of space are rented to businesses or consumers for the temporary storage of business or personal items. This is almost verbatim from what the draft being proposed by the bylaw review committee. The only thing that I changed is there said portions of space are rented to consumers, and I added businesses because, as you know, most self-storage facilities have small businesses, not just individuals, plumbers, electricians, etc. So that's the first component. The second component is to amend section 190-5 of the bylaw by adding a district, which is now the self-storage facility overlay district. The third is to add the general description under 196A. It references that the self-storage facility overlay district is a special overlay district to distinguish locations suitable for self-storage a self-storage facility. Within the self-storage facility district, all provisions of the zoning bylaw, Town of Wakefield, applicable to the underlying districts shall continue to apply, except that a self-storage facility shall also be allowed therein by special permit. So to be clear, we're not affecting any underlying zoning, but it's just an overlay district, and I'll get into that in some detail in a bit. This is the map. This is the number 4, creates the self-storage overlay district map, which is the property at 50 Quannapowitt Parkway. And you'll notice here, it's also a small portion of 100 Quannapowitt Parkway, which is the office building next door. You can see how there's a jog. So this is interesting. This is the property line for 50, where my cursor is. This little piece, which we're proposing to be in the district, is part of 100, but 50 Quannapowitt has an easement rights over that portion. So we want to make sure that that's included, because what we're looking at is a possibility of doing a common driveway to keep as much green space as possible. Next, number 5, it amends section 190.77A of the bylaw by referencing the map therein. So the self-storage facility district is located as shown on a separate map, self-storage facility overlay district map dated April 29, which I just showed you. Number 6 amends the table of use regulations 190.23 by adding self-storage facility as a use in the town specifically. And what you can see is we've put no in all districts. However, in a business district, we put special permit, because currently warehouse is allowed in a business district. And currently a self-storage facility is in essence a type of warehouse. It's allowed by right in the limited industrial and by right in the industrial. So we're not changing that. And obviously it's not going to be allowed in the assisted living overlay district, but we're saying it's allowed by special permit in the self-storage facility overlay district. It's allowed by special permit. And that's important to note. We're not saying it's allowed by right. It's allowed by special permit. So in order to go forward, it would need a special permit before the Zoning Board of Appeals. Number 7, we're amending the table of required off-street parking by adding the category self-storage facility. And we've put that there'll be 1 space per 10,000 square feet of gross area. I want to point out, we did not pick that out of thin air. That standard comes from the ITE, International Traffic Engineers manual, that's what they specify self-storage facilities should have. And currently that fills a gap, because right now self-storage facilities in towns are warehouses, and it requires 1 space per 1,200 square feet, which is ridiculous for a self-storage facility, as I'll get into in the future of this presentation. Number 8, what this does is it's giving the zoning board some options as far as dealing with reductions in dimensional requirements. So what this says is the Board of Appeals may allow reductions from requirements of 190.31 of the zoning bylaw, Town of Wakefield, in the front, side, and rear setback requirements of Table 2 of the dimensional requirements for a self-storage facility, only in the self-storage facility overlay district by special permit. Any such reductions have to be supported by evidence of lack of suitable land, design considerations, or similar factors. The board has to also find that the granting of the special permit will not adversely affect the health, safety, convenience, character, or welfare of the neighborhood of the town. As you'll see, 50 Quannapowitt is unique shape. We want to try to fit the self-storage facility in there as neatly as possible to have as little impact on the land as we can. And this will give some flexibility to the zoning board to allow some relief for setbacks. One of the things I want to point out is we did not put in allow relief for height. The height requirement in that district is 50 feet. This does not allow it to go higher than 50 feet by special permit. And the final component is to amend 190-36 of the bylaw by adding the following paragraph, which would be D, exceptions for a self-storage facility. And I'm going to explain what this is doing. Currently, there's some the requirements for a common driveway in Wakefield in the bylaw are a little bit vague and unique. As I showed you, we have that easement over 100 Quantipower Parkway. And our goal is to, where they already have a driveway serving their building there, is to do some type of driveway share or keep it all on that area to keep as much of our lot as open space and green area for development. So this section would allow a common driveway to occur for a self-storage facility located in the self-storage facility overlay district. Again, both of these exceptions would not apply to self-storage facilities in the business district, limited industrial, or the industrial district. So next, I just want to touch on the use of an overlay district rather than changing the underlying zoning district. So to start out, what is an overlay district? Because people get confused on that. So an overlay district is a district superimposed on an established underlying zoning district, which permits uses otherwise not allowed therein. And as I've mentioned, currently in the limited business district where 50 Quantipower is, an assisted living facility, a self-storage facility is not allowed there because it will be a warehouse, and that's not allowed in the limited business district. So we decided to utilize an overlay district to allow that to occur. The underlying zoning district at 50 Quantipower Parkway, as I've mentioned, is limited business and it's not allowed. Rather than change 50 Quantipower Parkway's underlying zoning to be a business district, which could have unintended consequences, we decided to create the overlay district to only allow a self-storage facility as another use. As I mentioned before, but only after obtaining a special permit and site plan approval from the Board of Appeals. This slide will kind of help orient you to the property, and it will also allow me to elaborate on, not having unintended consequences and the benefit of a overlay district in this instance. So highlighted in yellow is the property at 50 Quantipower. You can see 100 Quantipower next to it. You can see the driveway coming in that we're talking that we kind of like to try to utilize that as much as possible for access. Our goal is to keep this property as green as we possibly can. And as far as the unintended consequences, as I mentioned, one of the options would have been to just rezone this business, and it would have been allowed there. It would have been too broad because we would have been zoning it business, which would have opened this property up to other uses, more intense uses beyond its current underlying district as limited business. It also would have allowed warehouse here, in addition to, a different type of, in addition to self-storage, which, I don't think the town would have wanted to do where it's near the highway, et cetera. So that's why we decided not to rezone the underlying zoning district here and use an overlay. One of the other things that we talked about was, well, another way to skin the cat is to just say that warehouses are allowed in the limited business district. And that would have worked, but that could have had unintended consequences too, because 100 is zoned limited business, the property next door. As you know, 200, 400 is under construction. So those probably won't be developed into warehouse space or self-storage. But the office park, 599 or 501 to 607, Lakeside Office Park, this big parcel is also zoned limited business. And we didn't want to just say that it will be allowed in limited business, because then it would have brought this property into play also. So we thought in this instance, the best thing to do was an overlay district, because this is really the property that's specifically appropriate to this use, considering where it is and the benefits to doing it on this property, which I will get to later on in the presentation. I also wanted to point out that overlay districts are not unique to Wakefield. We have a bunch of them in our bylaw. We have an attached dwelling overlay district. We have a mixed use overlay district. We have a creative development overlay district. We have a municipal building reuse overlay district, signage overlay district, and assisted living facility overlay district. And as you can see, these were inserted into our zoning bylaw on various dates. But this concept is not unique to Wakefield, and it's not unique to our zoning bylaw. Zoning bylaw already contains a lot of overlay district components. This is just kind of a bigger blown up portion of the overlay district map, which is hatched, as you can see, and it really deals with these two pieces. The border of this, it's along Quantipow Parkway, a little bit on North Ave. This is actually the ramp of 128, and then this is Route 128 from behind. So there's really no abutters and neighbors in the back or anywhere near here. This is a conceptual site plan that we came up with. That is really our goal plan, that if this goes forward and we're fortunate enough to pass at a town meeting and going forward with the Board of Appeals, this is what our plan is going to be based on. And it's our conceptual site plan. I'm going to blow it up a little bit. And as you can see, this site is a big site. This line is not the property line. This is only a line showing where part of the land is registered land and part is unregistered. The ownership is in its entirety, as I just delineated. It's 4.5 acres of land. There's a good amount of wetlands in the back. You can see the wetland line that's highlighted. So that has to be respected, and we plan on doing that, because also development of this property will require review and approval by the Conservation Commission. As you can see, what we're doing is we've got a building which is probably going to be about 25,000 square foot footprint, planning on 5 stories, and we're setting it back towards the highway as much as possible. And as you can see, and with the parking references that I had in the bylaw amendment, we're showing 8 spaces here. We would need probably to fit 4 more in, but as you can see, it's very low impact on the property. It leaves a lot of opportunity to keep a lot of green space, especially up on the front along Quantipow Parkway. And this is where we've talked about potentially a common driveway. And where this is kind of already developed, we'd like to focus and preserve some of this green space to the left. But I just wanted to give the planning board an idea of what we're looking at going forward. And hold on. Just gotta unshare because my screen froze. I can just.
Excellent.
You see that again?
Yep,
Coming up.
we're good.
So we actually have already hired an architect that we're working on this with, and this just gives you an idea. This is kind of the building. This is as you would see it from Quantipow Parkway, and this is only a conceptual, but we recognize the limit on 50 feet, and we're going to comply with that. And we expect that we will be made to comply with that. As I mentioned, we didn't put in the bylaw that we could get relief from that from special permit. The owner of the property and the proposed developer are very sensitive to how this will look from Quantipow Parkway. And we've had some discussions on that, which I'll get into towards the end of the presentation, and some commitments that we've made in that regard. As far as moving forward with the development of a self-storage facility on this site, but really looking at a tasteful building that will fit well into that location. I thought it'd be important to point out other uses that are allowed on that site. Either by right or special permit currently under our bylaws. So one is a religious use is allowed, educational use is allowed, and that could even be a for-profit educational use. membership clubs. So, you know, that could actually be a BJ's or something like that. Multifamily housing is allowed, as was done at 200, 400, right down the street. A retail store would be allowed. And some of these require special permit. Service establishment, restaurant use, office building, and hotel. So a multitude of possible uses are allowed currently under our bylaw, either by right or special permit. So these are options for the owner of the property if the self-storage facility does not go forward. So I thought it would be important to, you know, state some reasons to support this bylaw amendment. It has been anticipated for years that 50 Quantipower Parkway will eventually be developed for either commercial or multifamily residential use, as is currently allowed by the bylaw, which we just went over. And the owner of the property has decided that the time to develop the property in some form or fashion is now. So I've worked on this with the owner of the property. They have decided that at this point, this property is going to get developed. It's not going to sit vacant anymore. Now's the time for them to do it. We've had discussions on all of the other uses. I advocated to wait for the opportunity to rezone this for a self-storage facility, because I personally think, for the reasons I'm going to get into, that this is the best use for this site for a lot of stakeholders. And I really pushed and tried to convince them, because one of the options was not to wait. We've been at this for about a year. It goes back to last spring when we had discussions, and you know, they want to move and develop the site, and it's very tempting to just do one of those other uses and move forward. But being good citizens, they said that, you know, we'll wait, we'll give it a shot at this town meeting. Hopefully it passes and we move forward in that vein. And if not, we've got other directions that we'll go in. So I would respectfully suggest that compared to the other development possibilities for the property, such as the multifamily housing, retail, office building, or a restaurant, a self-storage facility is a win-win situation for the various stakeholders. For the town, the Friends of Lake Quantipowitt, the neighbors on North Ave, and residents in general. The amended bylaw would not allow the proposed self-storage facility by right without town board oversight. But if approved by town meeting, as I've mentioned, it will require a special permit and site plan approval from the Board of Appeals with detailed site and architectural review, as we all well know they always do. As an alternative to other development options, a self-storage facility would result in an extremely low impact development of the property with benefits for the town, the Friends of the Lake, neighbors, and residents of Wakefield for the following reasons. A, as occurred during the Board of Appeals process regarding 200, 400 Quantipower Parkway, the multifamily development, the Board of Appeals could require the developer, Mr. Capizzoli in this case, or anyone else, if he didn't go forward, of the self-storage facility to commit the significant area of the property not needed for the self-storage facility would never be built upon, thus allowing for opportunities for open space, landscaping, plantings, and protection against future development on that remaining land in perpetuity. I showed you on that conceptual plan the significant green area and the low impact area of development that a project of this nature would require or entail. B, the building footprint will be very reasonable in size, which you saw compared to the size of the lot and other stuff that will go there. When you look at other developments, they're going to require a lot more parking, perhaps a parking garage that might go in that front area along Quantipower Parkway. This building footprint for this type of use will be extremely reasonable compared to the 4.5 acre site. As you saw, the building will be located toward the rear of the property, closer to Route 128 and away from Quantipower Parkway and Lake Quantipowitt. D, the traffic generated by a self-storage facility is incredibly low. People like myself store their files there and don't go. I haven't been to my storage facility for 3 years, but I pay every month. It's a great business. So it's extremely light traffic and virtually no traffic on, you know, peak hours. So really no impact traffic on 128 or North Ave or the surrounding area. E, there would be minimal light and signage impacts from this type of facility. F, the number of parking spaces required for this type of facility is minimal. You saw under the bylaw calculation, it will be 12 for a facility of the size that we're proposing. G, the tax base will be an extreme positive for the town for years to come. It will be a commercial building, commercial tax base. Right now, it's only being taxed for land. H, there's a need for a self-storage facility in this area. It works well. There's been a lot of multifamily developed. You're going to have 440 units next door. People in apartments need place to store stuff. So it's a great use. It works very well. You've got the office park in the area, right? You know, my office park, people there need storage. So it really fits well in conjunction with the existing uses that are either there or that are under construction. I, a self-storage facility will have little or no impact or demand on public services, police, fire, schools, etc. None, really. And J, for the long term, the bylaw amendment will result in public benefits and improve public health, safety, and/or welfare, especially considering what the other uses are that could go there. I want to talk about the Friends of the Lake, Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. I've mentioned that we've been at this for about a year. I, as everybody is very respectful of the role that the Friends of the Lake plays as far as the protection and enhancement of Lake Quannapowitt on behalf of all the residents of Wakefield. The Friends of the Lake were before your board going back when 200-400 was being developed. And during that process, you witnessed that they had concerns not only for that property, but for this property at 50 Quannapowitt and for the property in Lakeside Office Park. And in fact, they had proposed some amendments to bylaws that were a discussion before this board for some time before 200-400 went forward. And at that time, as you know, we were able to work with the Friends on 200-400 Quannapowitt in a very positive fashion to make it what I think will be a good development for everybody in town and for the lake. So knowing that, we approached the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt on this project early. We started talking to them last spring. We contemplated bringing this bylaw before town meeting last spring and before your planning board. And we started discussions with the Friends on what this was about, the concept, how it will work. We determined at that time there wasn't enough time to get everything done, to have discussions with them. So we put it off, and I was able to convince the owners to wait. During that time, we have had multiple meetings with the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, their directors specifically, their officers, in regards to this project. We discussed the site layout on where we plan on putting the building and have made commitments to them in that regard. We discussed the style of the building that we've made commitments to them on. For example, it's going to be desired, and we would expect the zoning board will require this as well. You're not going to be looking at a loud orange-green storage facility building. This building will be required to be designed to fit into the area, to blend in, to have natural colors. It will have limited signage facing Quannapowitt Parkway. There'll be nothing loud about it calling attention to it. We also had great discussions with the Friends about the ability to protect the remaining open area on this property. The area that fronts Quannapowitt Parkway, that significant piece of land that we can put some, perhaps some benches on for the public, some gardens, maybe a walkway. My client, if a self-storage facility goes forward, is happy to work with everybody on that. So we anticipate those would be discussions with the zoning board and requirements of the zoning board of appeals if it goes forward. So after all of those discussions and meetings, I'm very happy and proud to say that the Friends has submitted this letter to your board and I'd like to read it into the record. And it says, Dear Chair Noel, the Board of Directors of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt voted unanimously at its March 5th, 2024 board meeting to support the proposed amendments to the existing zoning bylaw and zoning map for 50 Quannapowitt Parkway to be heard by the Planning Board on March 12, 2024. The mission of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt is to promote public awareness and provide long-term protection and enhancement of Lake Quannapowitt and its surrounding public lands. Our organization feels that the reference changes, if approved at town meeting, will allow for the reasonable, low-impact development and use of the property located at 50 Quannapowitt Parkway as a self-storage facility, subject to obtaining necessary approvals from the Wakefield Conservation Commission and Board of Appeals, and will align with our mission. Respectfully submitted, Mark Kopi, President, Friends of Lake Quannapowitt. So these were great discussions, and I would like to thank them for their cooperation and support. They recognize the other uses that could go here and the benefits of this low impact development that would be allowed if these zoning changes are allowed to move forward. So with that said, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions or take comments from the board at this time. And I'm happy to go back to any slide that might be helpful to any of the board members that want to refer to it.
All right, thank you very much. I think, yeah, I'd open it up to board members, but I think I'd prefer to start by opening up to members of the public. Does anybody have any hands up?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any hands up. Daniel Lieber has his
Alright.
hand up.
Okay. All right, Dan, where are you?
There we are. So thank you very much, Chair Noel. Very, very nice presentation, Attorney McGrail, much appreciated. I am also the chair of the Bylaw Review Committee, and we had the opportunity to quickly review this proposed zoning bylaw in the context that it will be coming before the town meeting at the end of next month.
Sorry to interrupt, Dan. Can you state your address too, please?
Sure. My address is 1 Elm Street. And in reviewing this as a board, there did not seem to be any significant opposition to it, and the language seems to be very consistent with the other zoning components in the existing bylaws and the recodification that is in process. So this has been the subject of a discussion. It will also be the subject of now that it is actually on the warrant, a meeting that is currently planned for or tentatively planned for April 1st. No fooling on that. And the idea is for all of the all bylaws, zoning or otherwise, to be reviewed at that meeting. But the Bylaw Review Committee as a body did not take any formal action, but there did not seem to be any opposition. Personally, I look at this particular proposal, and I think that it is very consistent with the goals of the overall town to provide well for the citizenry and have a responsible use of the property itself. So I look at this particular change, and while it's very narrow in scope, I think it's appropriately set up so that it will not be able to be expanded and used in an inappropriate way. In addition, I think there's a very positive side effect that because it's an overlay district, the map could be modified and extended at any point to include other parcels or regions as the town may find appropriate, likely at the request of future developers if more self-storage facilities are needed. And when that is done, it will actually have the advantage of the protections built into this particular bylaw. So if there is a self-storage facility that gets built in another section of town, I think that would also be very beneficial. So I think that from a recodification perspective, it makes sense. From a town perspective, it makes sense. So that's my input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's That's helpful. Anyone else?
Looks like Chris Murphy may have,
missed it.
may want to, comment.
Chris, if you can unmute.
There we go. Hi, can you hear me now, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
How are you? My name is Chris Murphy. I live on 129 Water Street here. I've been a resident here my whole life, and I just want to speak to the character of the developer, the Capizoli family. I've known my whole life. My father grew up with them, as with Chris's father, and known him for 90 years. We've known him. So I just want to say I've seen the buildings they build. They've had them from New Hampshire to Florida. And one thing they always do is they build some of the most beautiful buildings around, and they maintain them impeccably. And they do a great job at what they do. And I think it's perfect for down there because with all the traffic, with all the new apartments and everything, again, it's a very low impact. You have all the new apartments on North Ave, need for storage space, and like, again, a lot of green space will still be kept to keep it looking very natural up there. And I just want to say, I know their reputation. They do a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Much appreciated. Um, anyone else? All right. Any board members with questions?
Mr. Chair, I do have some comments and questions.
Sure.
Thank you. First off, Attorney McGrail, thank you for the presentation and with your client, Mr. Ogren. It's good to see the potential of what the site could be, and I appreciate showing the placement of the 25,000 square foot 5-story building. I think it helps to see where that would be located. Thinking about shadows on the lake, thinking about impact, runoff, wetlands. And the only other concern, I remember my daughter playing soccer here. This is used as a little extra soccer field when there's no other place to really set up all the cones to watch the kids run around and chase the ball. Not that there's other fields in Wakefield that can't be used for it. So that's I'm just really looking forward to a piece of property here that low impact, as you mentioned. If there's anything else that you can think of with this site that could help with the runoff into the lake, runoff into the wetlands. Obviously, that's jumping really far ahead. But with this overlay district, I have to say I would be in favor of this, just the way it's laid out and presented. I looked through the old or the existing bylaws, and I couldn't find anything that stuck out as far as numbers and everything. So obviously, it all looks correct. Anything in the wording, nothing jumped out, and I really appreciate Mr. Lieber jumping in from the bylaw committee to give us that backup as well. And just so you know, Attorney McGrail, Erin Kokinda did forward that message through Theo through our chair to the board as well from the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, and that's always helpful to hear. So I guess I don't have any questions, but looking forward to seeing this go to town meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, Theo, I have a couple questions too.
Sure. Yes, please.
Can you tell me how many people will be working at this facility? You're on mute, Brian.
Chris, are you on?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
Yep, yep. Chris Capizoli, Matt, if that's okay with you, he's probably more appropriate to answer that than me.
Yep.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. As far as to answer your question, it'd be 1, if not 1.5. That's people. That's it.
All right. Generally, I'm really not in favor of a basically dead building that doesn't really contribute much to the tax base except for property taxes. Especially in a high profile location like this. This is basically the first thing people see when they get to Wakefield. It seems like it could be utilized, a lot better than just a building that employs one person and is basically vacant. Well, it's vacant probably 98% of its life. It just seems like a storage facility you'd have in the backside of a town, not at the front door. So I just think it's not very inspiring use of a high profile piece of land. I do get that it will preserve some green space, but basically what we have now is a big heavily fertilized lawn that doesn't do too much. So if this were to go in, I would hope something more than just a big lawn may be used out there. I'm not quite sure what. A playing field would be nice, but for the town to take this high profile property and put a building up and basically have the income of one person working there, I just feel like there's better uses for this. So I'm still on the fence whether I want to support this or not.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
Matt.
can I just add to that? Can I
Sure.
add to that just quickly?
that'd be great.
The point that Matt makes on, the green field, in some of the discussions, in our intent is to, we're gonna continue to work with the Friends of the Lake on how this is gonna work and be developed. We're gonna work with them on building design and we're gonna continue to meet with them and their directors. We've told them that we're committed to that, and they have great input. Because they're vested. So we respect and appreciate that and value the input that they can give. And one of the things that we talked about with them is the green space in the front is not to just leave it like, just grass, to really do some maybe rain gardens, make it a real visual amenity benefit when you're coming into town and maybe put some benches there. Quantipow Parkway is going to get redone as part of 200-400. To really blend into that. There's going to be a lot of rain guns and public amenities at 200-400 that are going to be on the private property. And we look at this as an opportunity to do some of that here. We're going to have a lot of open space to work with. So that's why I personally was excited about this and why I advocated to the owner, wait, because I think this will be really good for all of the stakeholders. So it's a work in progress. But there is a commitment moving forward to make it something nice to look at, not just kind of like half dead or overgrown grass out front in that field. And that's all going to take place at the Board of Appeals. They have jurisdiction over that. They were diligent and did a great job on 200-400. And I'll do as far as what the requirements are there, I think they'll be consistent here. And also the Conservation Commission did a great job with that too. And Mr. Spalding mentioned the improvement of water quality, et cetera. So there might be opportunities for that, all the new rain garden technology, and, John Ogren is going to have his hands full doing the design on this for stormwater. So we're ready to get to work.
Is there an actual commitment to fund this, or would this have to be done by someone else? I understand. Well, I understand that, but the developer working with people, it doesn't mean they're gonna actually do a lot of this work for this green space, so if there's a commitment to it, that's one thing. Again, this seems like a lost opportunity for something that can contribute to the town, not only financially, but aesthetically, besides just having, again, a building that's basically, and I'm not sure what it's going to look like. I've seen a lot of other facilities that, especially right down the road in Woburn, one of those lit up all the time. It just looks like a storage facility, brightly lit, that it's not very appealing we have a brightly lit, almost looks like a storage facility across the street from this. So, I don't
this
know.
is-
Again, I just don't, I feel like there's a huge lost opportunity with a great piece of property that, is basically gonna be idle.
Can I comment?
Sure.
Please.
One of the issues with this property is the wetlands. And the capacity to hold a proper development. If you had tried to go in with multifamily, multifamily has been tried on this project, on this land for the last 20 years. It doesn't work. It doesn't fit. Now you go to retail. You're never going to have the parking, the impervious paving, and the number of spaces you're going to need to support restaurants. The land is basically unusable. The only way that this land is ever going to do anything is with a facility that we're trying to put in here, because we're such a small footprint, and you need to leave the rest alone in order to contain our water, which John can obviously chime into if he needs to. And I know this isn't an approval session, it's just a referral for the zoning change. But if you look back at the history of this land over the years, it's non-buildable. And that's where you really run into an issue here. So now you look at it as, okay, what is the highest and best use for this property in the condition that it's in? And that's what we feel we are presenting, because like I said, small footprint, low impact, low paving, low impervious, low water runoff. Obviously we have to take our runoff for what we're going to produce and hold it and everything else. But the rest, we're willing to work with the town. I don't know in what form or fashion, but I think for what we're trying to present here for the land that's in play with the situation that the land is in, it's the only thing that's really going to work here. And that's the condition with the conservation and everything else, and the whole thing with the wetlands. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've been following this property for years too. I understand the issues. I understand how the wetlands have somewhat been adjusted out there with the lawn and everything. So I'm fully aware of what has been proposed here. And I appreciate that. I just think there needs to be something at a gateway to Wakefield that really improves the area. Let's put it that way. So
Right, and I do understand that. If I could have put up a shopping mall, and I'm not being funny, but I'm saying if I could put in a higher density use there and get a bigger return, I would do it in a minute. It's just the land just doesn't support it. And that's, again, just back to what I said before. I do appreciate what you're saying, but if the land supported that, then sure, I completely get it. But you're not going to stick, 100 units in there. You're not going to stick, a couple of 10,000 square foot restaurants in there with 150 parking spaces. I mean, it's not doable. That's all I say. Thank you.
yeah, and I'm not advocating for housing or massive restaurants out there either, but it just seems, again, it's a gateway to Wakefield. There needs to be I think it's still just a missed opportunity, and it's not just from you, it's from the owners for years out here. So
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, somewhat apropos of nothing. The gateway argument really does resonate with me, and I'd harken back to the Vision 2030 surveys and some of the master plan conversations where people did talk about youth recreation and things like that. And so perhaps there is room for some sort of compromise or thinking about some more active use of the green space. But yeah, yeah, again, the gateway aspect does resonate. Another thing that people did talk about that may in the Vision 2030 was really, some signature or some remarkable asset. So community asset, so there's like, and just letting that germinate and resonate is helpful, because that's why we had all those conversations, and that's why we're thinking about future land uses. But it also does resonate with me that, just the extreme limitations of the site. So
I think when you
Are-
look, just to add to
Yeah.
that, when there's a lot of sensitivity to that site, right? You have sensitivity from traffic. You've got a light there.
Yeah.
You've got the large development going next to it. You've got environmental sensitivities, where you've got lake amenities for the Wakefield public. So, and I think that's what resonated with the Friends of the Lake. There's so many sensitivities to that site. The most low impact use possible, a use that generates tax revenue, that will be designed extremely tastefully from a building aesthetic perspective, from a site perspective, landscaping, that will all be overseen by the Zoning Board of Appeals, that we're committed to working with them on, working with the Friends of the Lake, working with the Conservation Commission. That is the best use for that site. And Gateway, it's all how you make it look. The building's going to be set back towards 128, so it's really how you look at it from, you're not really going to see it coming from Reading. And storage facility building can look good. Matt, you mentioned a couple, bright, I'll reference you to the storage facility on Water Street across from Nassau Playground. Guess what? You don't even notice it. You don't know it's there. Very large storage facility behind Shelmar. The colors, it blends in. The only thing you see is the sign, and the sign's pretty tasteful. But it's not, you don't see it. You don't notice it, because you know why? Through the approval process at the Zoning Board of Appeals, they made sure that you weren't going to notice it. Doesn't stick out. And that's the way that this can be designed, that it won't stick out. It won't jump out at you. That's not the goal here. The goal is to keep it low impact, respect the environmental sensitivity of the site, the environmental sensitivity of the area, and to keep the traffic, to have no added traffic on North Ave. But instead of just taxing a vacant piece of land, now you're putting a building on it that's going to be a good sized building that's going to create some significant tax revenue in perpetuity for the town. And it's going to protect the remaining land in perpetuity for the town, that nothing else is going to be developed there. With all due respect to Chris does these facilities, and he's really good at it. I do other developments. You can build on that site. We've looked at that site. There was a prior developer that was before that was going to go forward. We had a design to build a multifamily building on that site, and the parking was going to be out front where the field was going to be, and it was going to be some structured parking. So it can be done. You can build anywhere today. And I don't think that's the right use for this site. I think this is the right use for the site, and I'll keep advocating for it. And we really would like your support on this.
Right.
Mr. Chair, unless there's any other comments, I think we should wrap this up.
I do have another
Sure.
question though. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I'm still on the fence. You did do a good presentation. So, one thing I'm curious about is the access to loading facilities for here. I work over in Stoneham by the facility that was built where Montville Plaza was. And one of the issues they have there is they barely have enough loading space to get trucks in. So if two trucks show up, one of them's parked out on Montville Ave waiting for the other one to come in. Has the design looked at making sure that there's going to be no overflow parking out in Quanah Parkway, that there's going to be no issues with trucks not being able to back in?
Yeah, so I'm a good question, and thanks for bringing that up, Matt. So one of the things that you'll notice when you look at this facade that I put up, it's facing Quanah Parkway. There's no garage doors here for a purpose. You don't want to be looking at garage doors from the lake or Quanah Parkway. It's going to be a tasteful building. As you face the building, the doors would be on this side. you see the plan that I switched?
Yep.
So you can see the site plan now, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So you'll see what's being proposed here is interior loading area. So Chris, can you elaborate on this a little bit on how it works, if you would, please?
Yeah, basically, based on our years of doing, design and facility building and construction, we made a loading area here that'll be able to fully support that building. And right now we're looking about 2 bays, if not 3 bays, that'll be undercover. So you basically just back in and you can unload, whether it be tailboard or ground level loading. The time that those guys stay are minimal. Any overflow, if there is any, we got in that proposed parking area there, could just lay on the side. But the reality is we never really come across it. Our facility in Wilmington, it's about the same size, about 110,000 feet. And we're able to give the access points. I do agree with what you're saying though, because like say, take the example of the public storage in Washington Street. Though they do design buildings with one in and one out, and it's terrible. We don't do that. We give multiple loading points and unloading points for that very reason. So the preliminary design that we have here now should, we'll be able to support that structure.
And Chris, that would all take place inside the building, right?
Yeah, this little cutout area here is basically we carved out the first floor. So you would, yeah, that area there. We basically carved out the first floor, so we'll be able to, you just back the truck in or back the car in or whatever, and you're out of the weather too and everything else, and it's
So these.
a lot easier,
these-
faster,
yeah,
safer.
Be clear that, just so that the board understands, these would be garage door bays facing the highway, and people that want to unload actually pull into the building.
That area there, correct,
Yeah,
correct.
Inside, not like
Correct.
loading stuff outside and carrying it in from Corner Power Parkway, et cetera. So
Yeah,
that's,
I'm moving my mouse around thinking you guys see it.
that's a good
Right, yeah,
question.
we do see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you go back out a little bit more? I
Yeah.
want to get reoriented to the site. Right.
Is that better?
Yeah, the elevation that you were or the facade you were showing us is the bottom edge of the building.
This side right here.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, that's this.
All right.
And the loading bays are on the side facing the highway over here.
So that will support 13-foot trucks pulling in there, the rental vehicles that you see a lot, or?
Correct.
Okay. And I take it there's gonna be no outdoor storage of vehicles or campers or boats or anything like that?
Correct.
And that's not allowed, won't be allowed. Because that's outdoor storage, which isn't allowed it's not allowed as part of this. Because the requirement is that it's in the building portions that's in the facility itself, and plus outdoor storage in like a contractor type yard is not allowed in the limited business district.
And it won't be allowed in the overlay district then either?
No.
Is it specifically excluded in it, or?
Yeah, it's not allowed because the facility is the building, and the rented space is within the building. So it's,
Okay. But it's not specifically excluded in it. You have it written just inside a building?
correct. I mean, you won't be able to do it because you're not renting a portion of the build. You can only, it's for the rental of a portion of the facility, which is the building, for the storage of personal items. So you're not gonna be able to like store a boat or the abandoned car out on the property. That's not gonna be allowed. The building inspector will not allow that. Not allowed in the storage facility overlay district, and not allowed under our underlying zoning in the regular district, the limited business district.
Would you be amenable to an amendment to add that explicit language?
Yeah, I think, if we look at this in detail and there's a concern with the language, I would absolutely be amenable to that. If you felt that needed to be tightened up, for sure.
All right.
And you talked about potentially expanding this to other parts of town. That's why writing this properly now, and if it were to be expanded, we could make sure that this doesn't sneak in as someone saying the facility is the entire piece of property and not just the building itself.
Sure.
Excellent point. We do
yeah,
have, I
one
don't know if
more, right?
we have Bronwyn Delavope with her hand up.
Yes, thank you.
Good evening, Brown Delavobe, 8 Cyrus Street. Thank you for the presentation. A lot of information there. I may have missed about how far is it from the closest point from the building to the wetlands delineation?
I'm gonna let John, I think we are. John, can you address that if I put up your site plan and answer Mr. Delavope's question?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Want me to bring it up, John? Or do you want to bring something up?
Yeah, so the closest point is the parking area. I guess I could no. Yeah, if you can bring up the site plan.
I can do that. Hold on.
And there's a lot of work that needs to be done with the Conservation Commission. This is kind of a complicated site from an environmental standpoint. The closest point that we have is it's about 4.5 feet. It's the proposed parking area to what we're calling the Fletcher Wetland Soils Line. You can also see on this plan is there's a line on there that's labeled 25 feet. So that would be 25 feet from the wetlands line to give you a kind of a reference.
Okay, it looks like the line that you're highlighting right now, it seems to go right through the building.
A little bit, right there.
Correct.
And that's the 25-foot line?
Yes.
Okay, how can that be?
Well, let me give you a little background on this. So you see this dark line here? All right.
Yes.
All right, so historically, historically, this property at one point was delineated for wetlands. The owner of the property did not agree with the Conservation Commission on that. And what they did is the Conservation Commission at the time, this goes back probably about 15 years ago, thought that the Fletcher wetland line was the correct line. The owner of the property thought that something way back here was the wetland line. So they got into a debate on it. They settled and they agreed to somewhere in the middle, not the Fletcher line and not way back, but they say maybe somewhere out here.
Well, the current Conservation Commission need to weigh in on that.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I'm not finished. So when we were going to develop this into multifamily, going back a few years ago, we met with the Conservation Commission and we asked them to agree to what the compromise line had been in the past. And they wouldn't do that. They said, no, they went out and they actually hired a consultant and they say, well, we really think it's a Fletcher line and that agreement's expired. So we don't agree with that line that we agreed to before. So what we're considering doing in developing this is developing it respecting the Fletcher line, just to not get into to work with them and to try to respect that line and to develop within that line rather than getting in a big debate with them. But again, that's going to be part of the process when we have to file with them. They're going to have jurisdiction over this. So that's why we reference the Fletcher line.
Right.
Work with them. And when we went to them, we had discussions with them and we said, if we agree to the Fletcher line, will you work with us on your 25-foot setback policy? And at the time they said, yeah, we would, depending, and maybe you could do some enhanced wetland improvement back here. So it's going to be a back and forth in negotiation process with them. So it's a very good question. That's the history of it. So really nothing's locked in here. Nobody's committed, but our goal is to find some common ground with them and work to improve the conservation aspect of the lot going forward.
Thank you. Isn't there a buffer zone though?
Well, yeah, but you have to determine what that wetland line is to create your buffer zone. And again, that's kind of a floating line at this point.
Okay.
We're
All
gonna
right.
live with the Fletcher line and then
Right.
work with them to, because as you know, they have a 25-foot policy from the wetland line. And we're gonna ask for some forgiveness with that if we agree to the Fletcher line, but in return, we might do some other improvements like over here, or we might do some extra mitigation in this area. It's conversations that we're gonna have to have with them. They've committed to nothing and we haven't, but our goal is to work with them.
Okay, thank you. Also, I have to agree with several of the members on the board saying that this is a gateway to Wakefield, and this is the very first thing I thought of when I heard of this proposal. That this is probably not the best representation of Wakefield. We've had this discussion with many other projects over the years, and you know how I feel about the urbanization of the town. This is, I don't believe, is the best place to put something like this. And since I do live just in the area of the Water Street storage unit, I wholeheartedly have to disagree with Mr. McGrail. You can't miss that building. It does not blend in. It's not hideous. I will say the landscaping certainly did help quite a lot, but it also lends a flavor to the entire neighborhood in this entire end of town. Certainly affecting the residential area, which I think is overlooked in many cases. So you can't miss the self-storage on Water Street. It sticks out. It's big. It's huge. It's bright. It's there. So having said that, I also don't care for sort of being held hostage as we are with so many of these projects that, oh, what could be there? It could be worse. Believe me, we could build this. Believe me, we could build out that. That's beside the point. That's not what we were discussing right now. And I believe that that's outside the catchment area of our discussion tonight. So I think we need to disregard that and look at what is presented. As we're reminded in every one of these meetings, you stay into the four corners of the discussion. And this is the four corners of the discussion. I don't believe that that is, no matter how nicely done it is, I don't believe that that is an appropriate place as an entranceway into town and the lake for a self-storage facility. That's how I feel. I'm sure the building, it sounds like a lot of thought has been gone into it, but a lot of thought was gone into Brightview, and there are problems that came up there that we were promised never would. Every single project, we're promised that there won't be a parking problem. We're promised there won't be this problem. And there always is. Okay, so let's, promises are promises when you're trying to get approval. So let's just keep that in mind. And I thank the board for its detail and its consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Delavolpe.
Mr. Chair, I do not see any other hands up or people waving.
Okay. All right. And you're right. So sorry, my phone is making, so I think, with that being said, no other, people, waiting to speak. I would like to consider continuing this, perhaps to the next meeting, so that the two other board members have an opportunity to consider this, unless Bill and Matt, you have a difference of opinion.
No, I agree. I think there's no harm. We don't need to, take a vote whether we want to support this or not at town meeting. So at this point, so I think if we could continue this to our next meeting, just so the other board members can come up to speed on what was presented tonight through the video, and then be able to contribute some, I think that'd be appropriate. And then if other members of the public wanted to speak, I think that would be fair too, as long as the applicant and the attorney are fine with that.
Well, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And, that's why we try to file it early to give it, I think the board always likes to have these things open for a couple of meetings if possible.
Yes.
So we do, and I was going to propose the same. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Matt.
All right. Does March 26th work to continue for the applicant?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I
Okay.
think yep, that's the next meeting, right, Mr. Chair?
Yep, that's the next meeting. All right. Fantastic. So we will do that. I want to thank Attorney McGrail and the owner or our developer and everyone from the public for speaking. And we will pick this up again on the 26th. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to transition to our second public hearing of the night. This is regarding the Marijuana Enterprises Overlay District. And all right. Get back to the gallery. Here we go. All right. And I want to call upon Attorney McCarthy. I think you're going to present this to the assembled masses. So
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you
Alright.
very much.
all right, and you have the ability. Can you introduce yourself and the overlay district and proposal?
Yes, sir. So my name is Michael McCarthy. I'm an attorney in Wakefield at McCarthy and McCarthy at 1 Center Street. And I am making the presentation tonight to establish the marijuana establishment overlay district. If I could, I'd like to share my screen as well and present a pack of slides.
Sure.
Thank you.
We can see your slides.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm in trouble saying it myself, but is the slide you're looking at, Mr. Chairman, does it indicate history on the left side?
All right. Yes, it does.
Oh, thank you.
November of 2016.
Yes, thank you. So generally, just by way of brief background, as is indicated on the slide, citizen petition or initiative petition back in November 2016, Mass voters passed question 4, officially legalizing recreational marijuana for individuals 21 years of age or older, which is what this overlay petition and specifically, and I'll get to the particular property that's at issue here. That's specifically what the current owner is looking to do. That's 12 Teal Road. The law did go into effect in 2016, and it was codified as MGL Chapter 94G, allowing retail sales by marijuana. State regulations were promulgated in 2018, and the law moved forward. The marijuana establishments, they're operational. I think there's about 341 currently in operation across the state. There are a number close by to Wakefield, including Melrose, Woburn, Malden, Lynn, Medford, Salem, Danvers, Rowley, Gloucester. There's a new one planned, I believe, at the old 99 on Route 1 in Saugus. So there really has been a progression toward this across the state and certainly toward Wakefield. Among the benefits that this would present to the town is revenue based. So in addition to the property taxes and income tax from the site to the state, the cannabis tax to the state, the town would reap 3% local sales tax on gross sales from the facility, and up to a 3%. In addition to that, a 3% community impact fee. The latter would be negotiated with a host community agreement between the town and the marijuana establishment and the town. This is just kind of a rough table of potential revenues. I know that across the state, the numbers have been really large in a number of communities, but this just kind of presents a table that this is again on top of what might be, what would be, and what is currently taxed in terms of the building and the property. So the total on the right side, assuming a 3% community impact fee on top of the 3% tax, kind of gives you an idea of the range of additional annual revenues the town might see. We would think it would tend toward the upper third of that table based on other experiences across the state. In any event, fairly substantial boost to potential boost to town revenues. Local history. In May in 2017, in response to the state developments on the law, the town adopted some temporary moratoriums. One is a general bylaw, which is referred to in the town code as Chapter 154, Section 9, which prohibited recreational marijuana sales. And there is another citizen petition being presented in concert with this overlay district petition to vacate that bylaw. That doesn't come before your board because it's technically for a recommendation, because it's technically not a zoning bylaw. That matter will be on the town meeting warrant along with this proposal. And of course, the reason we're here today is a 190 section 112 temporary moratorium on marijuana establishments. The bylaw does allow for medical marijuana establishments, although the general bylaw would prohibit it, but the zoning bylaw, allows for that. As it was referenced by Attorney McGrail in terms of the rental, the self-storage, the town bylaw review committee is currently undertaking, and as Mr. Lieber indicated, of all town bylaws and ordinances. The published working draft, which is dated December 31st of 2023, so it's fairly current, does include provisions for marijuana establishments. And to be clear, when I say marijuana establishments, we're talking about retail marijuana establishments to be allowed in industrial districts in the town of Wakefield. And that's generally speaking industrial districts across the town. This property, the Teal Road properties, are in the industrial district. This proposal would establish an overlay district along Route 28, which is accessed over Audubon Road from the end of Teal Road, which I'll show in a second, to the end of Audubon Road. There's three essentially properties involved in the overlay district. The only property really that would be affected here and that anything would be going forward on is 12 Teal Road. It's the planned location for a marijuana establishment, a retail operation, possibly a lab in terms of processing oil, but no cultivation, no growth, no big operation. It will be a focused retail operation. So this is the plan for the overlay district. So you can see Teal Road. I'll show an overview from Google Earth that might be a better indicator, but in any event, here is Route 128. This parcel is 12 Teal Road. This is really the parcel at issue. This is where the retail store would go if the overlay district was adopted, and if the zoning board of appeals approved the special permit for that use. Here's a visual overview. And so we got 128. Here's Audubon Road out here. As you know, it connects in this area with 128, and Teal Road is here. Is where the pin is 12 Teal Road. That's where the marijuana retail establishment would like to be. Go forward. So as you saw, the property is located at the end of Teal Road. It's completely buffered by Route 128 on the southerly side. As the board, I'm sure, is familiar, the property is surrounded by commercial industrial uses. There are really no residential abutters. There is an apartment building just off 128, and then there's the old Better apartments further down Audubon Road, but they're not direct abutters. There really would be no impact on any of them, nor would there be really any impact on any of the other businesses or industry. Particularly where access to this site would be right off 128 and onto Audubon Road. Certainly there are no residential neighborhoods involved. This doesn't affect the downtown business district at all. It's very isolated off Audubon Road down near the Linfield line, and easily accessible off Route 128. The proposal, if it were to go forward, this, as Attorney McGrill indicated with his overlay proposal, that wouldn't be the end. This is not an as of right proposal. This is not an as of right development potential for the retail store. They would still be subject to special permit requirements of this proposed bylaw, as well as the general special permit requirements of the bylaw. It would be subject to a host community agreement, which would have to be negotiated with the town council specifically, and it would still require a state license from the state. The overlay district, and I'm glad Attorney McGrill gave that kind of a briefing on the nature of the overlay district. I know the board in any event is familiar with it, but in this particular case, particularly where there is consideration being given, at least consideration being given in the overall review of the town bylaws to allowing the retail sale in certain districts in the industrial district across the town. This is a small focused area within the industrial district, so it's entirely consistent, but a much narrower scope than what's being discussed in the bylaw review committee. So it allows the town to preview the experience of having a retail establishment before, opening the door to other areas of the town to similar permits. Gives the town the opportunity to iron out any issues relating to the operation of the establishment. Would also allow the town to gain knowledge relative to the expected income from the other retail operations, and that would be helpful to the town, not only in terms of planning, but also in terms of negotiating on their host community agreements in terms of the community impact fee. I should note that with there's the 3% sales tax, the community impact fee should be rationally related to the impact that a facility actually has in the town. So where this property is off Audubon Road, off the highway, it may be a little different than if let's say, if this were allowed across the industrial district through the town, maybe a different impact if it was on New Salem Street or another area, but it would still give the town some working knowledge of what the impacts were and allow the town to negotiate with more information relative to community impacts. Kind of bullet point 4 there is the same thing that I was just saying. And in essence, as this notes, it would give the town the opportunity to wade into this experience rather than jumping in with both feet. Some highlights of the bylaw. I won't go line by line, obviously, through the proposed bylaw. It's a bit lengthy because it needs to be. But I'd like to hit some highlights, and certainly would be happy to answer any questions the board of the public may have regarding the specifics. This bylaw, which is state law, requires much of this in any event, but it prohibits marijuana use on the site, requires all activity to occur within the building. There are no outside activities at all, sales activities or promotional activities. Requires fairly stringent security measures at the property, which would be subject to local approval under the special permit requirements and local monitoring. The signage would have to be approved by the town, so it wouldn't be anything gaudy or untoward. The property, the retail store, and this is state law. This is right out of the CMRs, the Code of Mass Regs that the state promulgated. It's got to be located at least 500 feet from a kindergarten or schools grades 1 through 12, measured door to door. If there's an impassable barrier like a highway or a wetland or something like that, then it would still be door to door by whatever road or path between the school and the facility. We don't think that's an issue in any event in our case. Lighting and landscaping has to be consistent with an approved security plan. The retail store would be subject to spot and regular inspections by the town and by the state. And in terms of the special permit is limited to the duration of the applicant's operation. So in other words, if one applicant gets approved and and then wanted to sell in a, at any point in time, the permit would lapse. And the new applicant would have to come in and apply for a special permit and go through the whole process with the town all over again. So that's kind of a general overview of the proposal. Certainly be happy to go into any level of detail that the board would like, or at the pleasure of the chairman.
I would like just really quickly to go back to the plot plan, or the not the Google Earth, but yeah. Can you enhance this? Can you make that bigger? I think.
Yeah, I think the best way for me to do that would be to open up a
Well,
yeah,
you're
no, I
in
can.
PDF.
Yeah, I can. I'm sorry.
Right there.
Yeah,
You go.
I'm not used to, but yep.
Yeah, no,
Happy
I
to.
feel your pain. And the point being, it is these 3 lots that are the.
That's the overlay district. Really,
Yeah.
really, these lots of it made logical sense because it's off the terminus of Teal Road to the terminus of Audubon Road and along the highway. Frankly, this is Nat Gun Pipes. It's a very profitable business. This lot is occupied by a publicly traded corporation that was featured on 60 Minutes. Neither of these 2 businesses are going anywhere. Really what we're talking about is this lot. Anticipating your question, I think, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I apologize if I
No,
jumped.
that's helpful. It also was just making it bigger makes it easier, I think, for the rest of the audience to see.
Sure.
The other 2 properties have no interest in this.
No, they're not really a part of it. Quite frankly, if the board if it were the board's preference to eliminate them, that would not be a problem. I try to have a logical area, really to allay any concerns over spot zoning, although that's not really a concern. But that really was the purpose. So no, neither of these 2 are involved in the proposal. It's just this lot or plan.
Okay. Other board members, any clarifying questions? I then wanted after y'all to call in Dan Lieber.
I have a question. Who's the applicant for this? Do they have other businesses already?
So technically the petitioner or the citizen petitioners, but the owner of this property is on with us. It's owned by Michael Clifford, the trustee of the trust there. So there's a business there called Centennia Systems and Dependable Security Systems. Both of those businesses are owned by the Clifford family. So the Cliffords are the current owners, and they will be the owners of the retail establishment if it gets approved. So it'll be the same people that own the property now that would own the property and be the licensee for the retail store.
So do they have other facilities, or would
They do not? No, this would be their first entry into that business. Those two existing businesses would move to another spot.
Okay, and just the reason why I ask is just because I work with some clients and I needed to know if I need to recuse myself. So that's why, if they had other facilities,
They do.
I would want it to be aware of that.
They do not.
All right, and then just another quick question. The site seems kind of small. There's not a lot of parking on there. Has there been any plan for how much parking is required and where it would be?
There's there is a possibility of, navigate over here, of putting some parking on the other side of the building. But the bylaw requirement would be, is fairly consistent with the other requirements of the bylaw. It'd be 1 per 300 square feet of retail and 1 per three employees in the max working shift. So there's been some conceptual work done, but we do believe that adequate parking can be provided on site.
Okay, that's all I have for now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do have a couple comments and questions as well.
Yeah.
Similar to Matt, some of my clients, we did the dispensary in Melrose, so good to hear. Not on the list, I checked. Also, with that building, just I know this is far enough away from Odyssey Day School, which is, if you are familiar, Odyssey Day
It
School is right
right
on
over here.
Audubon, correct?
Right.
But I
Oh,
was,
oh, yeah.
yeah, I was concerned. I don't know what the School of Rock is, which is the building to the right of, if we're looking at this map, it's
It
kind
kind
of
of goes with, yeah, so that would be right in this area.
it is,
It's
and
not a school. It's not
Okay.
a school. It's a music. It's kind of goes along with the jam spot
Yep.
use over there.
okay,
It's musicians.
right, but it's not like charted as a school where
Correct.
kids are coming in at the elementary or kindergarten level to be taught music at any time, or
That's correct.
okay. I do remember this from when it came up before, and I know if I remember correctly, it was the same area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy? Yeah.
Yep.
Attorney McCarthy, if it does feel to me like it is spot zoning, even though you mentioned it wasn't, and that was one of the comments I was bringing up. If the other two properties are not part of it, and this is a small little overlay area, how is it different than spot zoning?
The spot zoning is not so much an issue anymore at all. And it usually is more applicable to limitations on property than permissive uses. But if there's a rational basis for narrowing the space down, then the courts defer to the local municipality, where it goes through the process, in this case of a planning board review and town meeting approval. So it's not a concern for the applicant.
Yeah, thanks
We
for
looked into it. So we're comfortable with that.
thanks for explaining. I just wanted to know more because I know in the past we've had issues, but it was more in residential areas where
Right.
with some spot zoning for a different type of use in that same area, which could cause some issues.
Right.
If there's any place in Wakefield for this to happen, it seems like this is the area, but I don't have any other questions or comments at this time. I'm looking forward to hearing from the public. And one more comment to Chair. Did we receive any letters or notes, emails? I want to make sure if they get a chance to be heard as well as the public that's present tonight.
Yes, we received one email from Don Valerio, and I see him on the call.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Right. Thank you.
All right.
And we do have one person with their hand up.
Yes.
Julie. Yep.
Okay.
Scott.
All right. Yeah, Julie will invite you to speak, and I know Dan Lieber's still on the call, so would like to come back to him at one point. All right, Julie, you are ready to go.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes, we
I thought for a
can.
second there you were still at the Celtics game.
I'm like, where's Waldo? I'm at
That's-
different places at your different meetings. Thanks so much for letting me speak. My name's Julie Scott. I live at 4 Central Street in Wakefield. I just wanted to point out there is a Wakefield Autism Learning Center at 107 Audubon Road. That might be something to take into consideration. So when I heard about this, actually before I heard about this potential overlay district, being a former teacher, I'm always very interested in the drug situation in Massachusetts. I supported the legalization of marijuana at the state vote in 2017. When a similar overlay district came to town meeting, I, like most people there, did not support the marijuana overlay district. In talking to different members of health services and law enforcement very recently, when they talk about the Cannabis Control Commission, they talk about it being a colossal joke. They say it's an enormous mess. They told me to Google terms like train wreck and Keystone Cops, and I did. And I found some very, very awful information about the commission that has been for 5 years running the cannabis industry in Massachusetts. And I'm disappointed because it's something I voted for, and I feel ashamed of voting for something that's run in such an inferior way. I'm so glad that we have Senate Bill 58, which is backed by 4 senators from Massachusetts, Republicans and Democrat, Michael Moore, Joanne Comerford, Donald Buthain, and Bruce Tarr from Gloucester. They have seen that the Massachusetts Cannabis Commission had an awful first audit. They're only 5 years old and they've already been audited once. It was awful. And then Shannon O'Brien, the chair, was fired last year. Well, not fired, she's let go. She's still getting paid. She's on the website, but she hasn't worked since last September. She's taken out a restraining order against the person who fired her. But I appreciate the bipartisan commitment from members of our Massachusetts Senate when they have, I have the bill printed out here. Again, it's number 58. When they ask for that there shall be within the commission, but not subject to the control of the commission, an internal special audit, internal this time. This is the second audit. An inspector general shall appoint a director of the special audit who will serve as an assistant inspector general under the supervision of the inspector general for a term of 4 years. Now, there are 8 other things that these state senators want. I appreciate their bipartisan concern. I wanted this to work. Clearly, it's not. I Googled some public record requests today from the Secretary of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, William Galvin's office, and I was shocked. I just looked at 1 year, 2023, some of the public records requests for the information in regard to the Cannabis Commission. Public records requests for all information pertaining to how being a sex offender is no longer going to be a mandatory disqualifying factor for the Massachusetts cannabis industry. The person who is asking for this information specifically wants to know who advocated or lobbied for such a belief within the Cannabis Commission. They want to know if there's any existing list of cannabis recalls. There's a huge testing issue with the Cannabis Commission, and there's no record of recalls. And there has been a history of testing that has shown high levels of toxins. 8 members have taken trips to San Francisco and to Colorado because they wanted to study social consumption. And there has been a records request from William Galvin's office in regard to that. In regard to the taxes that you get from the state of Massachusetts, Mike was right. The retail cannabis customers pays a retail excise tax of 10.75%, plus a general sales tax of 6.25%. A city or town may, if they choose to, also levy taxes up to 3% of marijuana sales in its locality. I want you to know that the sales tax revenue goes to the general fund. It also goes to the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, the MBTA, and it goes to school building authorities. And the excise tax supports programs like the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission and the Cannabis Control Commission. And I did find somebody in the list of William Galvin's office asking for information about how much of this does the Cannabis Commission get back and in fact give to themselves. Again, I wanted this to work. So far, it's not working. And I would be concerned that we would be having an overlay district that would be having an awful lot of influence under the Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission, who right now is fighting within itself and is a joke. Even the state of Connecticut has written some very negative articles because what we do
You're at the
here in
5-minute mark, Julie.
Massachusetts affects other states as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Appreciate your comments.
May I address one point, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Quickly, the breakdown on the taxes, Julie's right. It's roughly 20% goes to the state and they use it for what the state does. But just to be clear, the 3% tax plus up to the 3% community impact would stay in the town. So that's differentiating.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Clarifying, not differentiating.
Right. Appreciate it. Mr. Lieber?
Thank you very much, Mr. Noel. A couple of things. This particular bylaw has only been very briefly discussed at a prior bylaw review committee meeting. It is also currently speculated that it will be discussed at the April 1st meeting when we discussed bylaws for the town meeting itself. There were a few things that jumped out in the review itself. The first thing that jumped out is the language is inconsistent with the current zoning componentry and with the proposed zoning componentry as to how measurements are done. This is a very significant change in that it's done from the center of a property to the center of other properties that are nearby with workarounds for impervious components. The current, underlying zoning in both the existing bylaws and the recodification in its current draft form does not make accommodations around properties when there are disallowed uses. By the same token, the proposed draft 1, which has been released, does actually address many of the potential uses of having marijuana components, as Mr. McCarthy correctly identified. This is anticipated to come up for town meeting in May of 2025 is the currently anticipated schedule. And this is a component that is expected to go through additional reviews. And so there are quite a few different components that I looked at this and said, okay, there is some concern. Two other issues that are of significant concern. One is it is nearby to 95 Audubon Road, which is a very large apartment building that does have a lot of children that live within it. It is one of the few buildings in town that does get service by buses, school buses under the mandatory school bus law. In addition, a neighboring property, the School of Rock, does cater to children. If you look at the website, I just went ahead and did it, and it's advertising for children as young as 7 to 12 as a common componentry of it. So with that, the spot zoning issue I no longer consider to be significant in Massachusetts based upon the advice that the zoning council has been given. My suggestion is that this issue become incorporated in as much as the bylaw review committee finds appropriate to the general recodification of the bylaws. And at that point, it will become an allowable use within industrial districts. Once that is adopted and accepted by the Attorney General's office, provided that it passes town meeting, at that point, properties in the town that meet the requirements would be eligible to apply for a special permit that are in the underlying districts. This property would potentially qualify, although again, there are current uses that would almost certainly prohibit it in the currently proposed location. So those are my initial comments. And for the reasons that I've specified, I currently do not support this bylaw as currently proposed. Thank you.
May I address that?
Thank you, Dan. And yes, please.
All right, so the measurement issue relates to the 500 foot, I think, if I understood Dan correctly, relates to how you measure the 500 feet. The measurement that's in the proposed, the measurement language that's in the proposed bylaw is taken from the Mass CMRs, and the distinction between what's referred to as the current bylaw, but that's relating to the medical marijuana. And I did look at the draft bylaw that the bylaw review committee is looking at. The difference there is essentially in the CMR, they have a provision that if the 500 feet in a straight line goes through an impassable barrier, then you go around the impassable barrier to measure the 500 feet. I don't think that's a big issue. I don't think it's a big issue for this site either. But it comes right out of the CMR. So if that's something that, you know, I mean, if you've got a wetland in between, or you've got a highway in between, the 500 feet seems to be somewhat irrelevant. If it makes sense that you'd have to go around it, but nonetheless, if that were an impediment, pardon the pun, we would, be willing to talk about that further and including with Dan and his bylaw review committee. With respect to 95 Audubon Road, an apartment building, there is no prohibition. First of all, that's pretty far away. It's well beyond the 500 feet. And I've seen no prohibition in any bylaw, and I've studied a fair amount of them over the last year and a half in preparation for this. That would make any such retail store not permissible because of its over 500 feet away from an apartment building. And the School of Rock is not a licensed facility in terms of education, or by any measure. So that would be inapplicable by any standard as well. So that said, we're willing to have talks with Mr. Lieber and certainly the board about clarifying the measurement standard.
Thank you very much. That's certainly helpful information. So Don Valerio, you had emailed us. Would you care to speak at this point in time, or would you like me to read your email? And if you can unmute and turn your camera on.
I'm having trouble trying to figure out how to unmute. Can you hear
All
me?
right. Yes, you're unmuted and we can see you. So that's great.
Oh, you can see too. Okay, good. Yeah, no, I just, simply, when I first heard they were entertaining putting one of these type of businesses in Wakefield, I just said, why? Why? There are so many of them within a few miles of Wakefield, I guess. But, you see them, a lot more of them around. Do we really need one? Why are we entertaining this when there's so many more around? So pretty simply, that was kind of my main point was, why do we need this? Couldn't we, if someone really wanted to go to one of these stores, they could drive a few miles and get to one, no problem. So, so for that reason, I'm against it.
All right. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Chair, there's another hand up, Marcy.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I'm Marcy McCauley, 32 Walden Road, Wakefield, and I would like to request that the planning board not support this article. I have found myself in a position in 2022 and 2023 that I worked extensively with
Marcy, can I interrupt you real quick? We're
Yes.
having trouble hearing you. Are you able to
Oh,
speak
sorry. Yeah,
closer to a microphone?
maybe. Hi, so Marcy McCauley, 32 Walden Road, Wakefield. I would like to request that the planning board not support this article. I found myself in 2022 and 2023 working with quite a few, I would say more than 10 marijuana dispensaries across the state, and in the realm of my professional work and theirs, and found them to be lacking in professionalism, a lot of turnover, a lot of missed appointments, and just disarray. And listening to Julie, I wasn't aware that she had done research or she, knew about that, but it resonated with everything that I had experienced. So I don't think at this point in time, with the number of things that Wakefield is facing, this makes sense for us to take on one additional problem area where there are a lot of children in that area. I understand the School of Rock may not be a school, but I believe the Magical Beginnings Learning Center is in that area, as well as the Odyssey Days School. And I just can't understand in my mind how we would justify moving into this type of business in that area without further research. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So Chair, there's another hand up. Laurel.
Good. All right.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. So I am on
Laurel,
yep. Can you hear me?
Yeah, name, address.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Laurel Gorbell, 33 Reynolds Road. I'm also the chair for Wakefield Board of Health, past almost 15 years. I just want, you know, we're thankfully, Ms. Scott has written us several letters, much more expansive than what she was able to express today. But so I want to thank Julie for that. But, you know, as you know, we've worked on a substance abuse prevention coalition for quite some time. When this first came up, you know, we don't offer a yay, nay, but we, you know, will continue to offer information about local impact with marijuana use and what we're seeing. I'm now in a mental health care provider, and it's very interesting to see how much how problematic use has been for some people, including psychotic episodes leading to either trying to figure out whether they have schizophrenia or it was just due to the amount of cannabis and THC in the product. So as a nurse practitioner, I'm not too thrilled about any dispensary being in Wakefield, but as a town member, and the board has yet to discuss this, so I'm not speaking for them. Our next meeting is not until later in the month. But, you know, we need to also sort of think about what other boards may be impacted in this regard. You know, we manage from the Board of Health, the inspections for tobacco. We work with town council on alcohol, along with the Massachusetts Commission, and it doesn't sound like we're anywhere near with the Cannabis Commission to have the correct tools to manage what may need managing in the future. I'm also very worried about the open the door opportunity, as it was pressed. That in fact is my fear. You know, I don't want us to open the door. And I agree with the other speakers tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I do not see any other hands up or people waving.
Okay. That said, Bill and Matt, do you have any other follow-up sort of responses or questions?
I do.
Yes.
So Attorney McCarthy, you had mentioned that that this is easy on, easy off for 128. But in fact, it's only easy on if you're coming south on 128 and 95 or getting back on there. Otherwise, you do have to go onto Salem Street, which is basically a traffic problem right now. So there will be some impact to neighborhoods in Wakefield that are somewhat removed from this. Do you agree?
I take your point, but I would say that my comments were more addressed to the traffic doesn't have to go through residential neighborhoods. And I would also submit that most of the traffic would not be during peak business hours where you know you do have traffic backup in that area. But it's certainly proximate to 128. It is relatively easy access. Granted, you can have traffic, but again, I doubt there'd be direct conflict with rush hour traffic at a retail store such as this.
Okay. And you know, as we've been discussing this, I've been, you know, looking at some imagery for the site in Google Street View. I still don't see how this property would work. Again, I've worked with some other dispensaries and I've been out there seeing their operations. I understand some of the traffic issues, that it might not be constant, but there are times when there's a lot of cars out at these places. I don't see where they're going to park out here. I don't see what you know, how the management's going to work. But I do see that if there are some problems, this is a good distance from the police station, and it's not an easy place if something, you know, medical issues or police need to be called here, that they can get to very quickly. So I just want to point out that there are some, this is not you know, the optimum place for this, and there are some issues that I foresee, so.
Well, certainly respect the perspective and the comments. I would just reply that there's no indication really that this would be from historically or otherwise, that this would be or any other retail store for that matter, is habitually problematic from a police enforcement standpoint. But I take your point. I think part of the benefit of the site is it's not close to the police station, which is downtown. But I understand your point, Matt.
Matt, if I may, are there, it sounds like Attorney McCarthy, you're saying no, there are no, there's no like correlation in other cannabis retailers of the need for enhanced public safety.
I'm not aware of any. I've been studying this for a year and a half, 2 years, visited many of the sites just so I could see them, see how they operated, and I've seen no indication of that. But it's there's also no indication the police would have a problem getting there if they needed to. It's not that far, and it's certainly they're able to respond on an emergency basis. But as I say, I don't want to argue the point with Matt. I take his point. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I take his point.
Mr. Chair, I don't see any other hands up at this time.
Okay.
Do we want to, or I would suggest that we take the same action as the earlier and extend this to, I guess this is a good discussion to have. Should we extend it to the next meeting, or should the bylaw review committee get a chance on April 1st and we add it to the, I believe, April 9th? I'm just looking for suggestions.
I would say extend it to our next meeting. This article, whatever we do here is really not materially going to change the article unless we're willing to make some floor amendments. So,
right.
I don't think we need to wait for the bylaw review committee to review this before we can, we can make our own decisions whether we want to support this or not at town meeting.
The only comment that did come up from Attorney McCarthy was the hatched area, whether it was going to include the other two buildings. Is that something we should address this evening or wait till the next meeting?
Well, are you thinking that we would do it
No, but it was just something Attorney McCarthy brought up, and I just wanted to know if that was something. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't missed from a discussion. I feel fine with what's hatched with the 3 different buildings there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with what they proposed for the area too. So,
right.
And I'm all for giving a business an opportunity to either thrive or not. This is obviously a business decision that someone needs to make. So,
okay. All right. Yeah, so leaving that is, or that that may come up again with the other 2 board members. So I think we're okay to continue this public hearing to the next meeting, March 26th.
No, we're certainly fine with that.
Okay.
Or April 1st, well, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Yeah. So our next 2 meetings are the March 26th or April 9th. So you're talking to the bylaw review committee on the 1st, or they're reviewing you on the 1st. So okay. Well, Mr. McCarthy, we appreciate the presentation and sort of the willingness to engage and take feedback, and we certainly appreciate everyone everyone's attention to the issue tonight. So,
And Mr. Chair, there is another hand up.
oh, wow, look at that.
Julie Scott.
All right. All right.
Hi, is it okay if I speak again?
Sure.
Okay, be very quick. I
Thank
believe Theo, you and, let's see, Bill Spalding, I think were at the town council meeting last night when the fire department was talking about response times,
Mhm.
how that part of town, especially for the fire department, can take more than 6 minutes, I'm assuming. It's further than what they were talking about to get into Audubon Road. And I would assume that for the police department to get there, that's one of the longest distances and the most time-consuming trips that they have to make from Center Street in Wakefield. And I do have on the Cannabis Control's website, they had a bulletin for armed robberies, break-in and theft attempts, social engineering schemes, reminder for incident reporting and requirements that they sent out in August of 2022. Then they sent it out again in August of 23. So there are issues with robberies in these facilities. So that I just wanted to share that with you. The Cannabis Control Commission does have that information on their own website. So it is an issue. Thank you.
I would submit it's an issue, you know, potentially anywhere. There's no indication that it's more of an issue there than anywhere else. And there is a requirement both in the state law, the statute, the CMR, and the bylaw for security committees and, security measures, security plans. And even if the permitting authority such as the ZBA were to require it, they could require a security officer. There are all sorts of ways to address that.
That's helpful, two helpful clarifications. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Excellent. All right. Well, we're very happy to continue this to March 26th. And so thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Well, thank you all. Appreciate your time
Great.
and comments.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our item number 6, items not anticipated by the chair. So I'd like to open up this to Matt and Bill.
I'm good. I shared mine before we
Okay.
started
All right. Yeah.
the hearings.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah, I've got nothing.
Okay. I have just a couple housekeeping things. So let me do those, and then I would like to invite Samantha if you have any questions, comments. Happy to sort of engage them if you like, or but it's not necessary for sure. Just to put on everybody's radar, since our meeting on our potential meeting on April 23rd is canceled because of the town election. I'd like to schedule a meeting for Tuesday, April 30th. So for a number of reasons, the most important being we're going to need to elect new officers for the coming year, and I am not available for our first scheduled meeting in May. So I'll leave that to y'all to chew on, and then we can pick that up later, or what have you. The other housekeeping item is I will finish drafting the annual report. That's due Friday the 15th. So if you care to send me any things that you'd like to make sure are included in the report, I'd appreciate it. It's been a busy year, so feel free to email me. And my last item is our agenda for March 26th is going to be to the continuation of these 2 public hearings. I intend to circle back around on rules and regulations for the subdivision control. And are there any other items to add to the agenda?
I do not have any.
Okay.
At some point, we still need to make a decision whether we favorably recommend or not recommend the MBTA communities. So we'll need to make sure that that is on before town meeting.
Yes, yeah. I had presumed that we might do that on April 9th. But we can also pick that up on the 26th if board members choose to.
Well, that does make sense since we're also hearing the citizens petition.
Right. All right. So that's it for me. I don't know. Samantha, if you've got any questions or whatnot, or but we'd be love to answer them now, or certainly as frequently as they come up. So.
Yeah, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
Just like I kind of mentioned before, really trying to take everything in and kind of get an understanding of how your board works compared to others who I've worked with in the past. And I'm sure things will come up in time, but not tonight.
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Well, we're really glad you're participating, and you know, really delighted you're working for the town. So it's great. It's great you're here. All right. That said, item 7, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Thank you.
I'll second it.
All right. Thank you, Matt. All in favor, Bill?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And myself, yes. All right. Okay.